Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us today on Winsight Live. This won't be the biggest news coming out of Arizona today, possibly, but uh, this morning, two stores in Chandler and Metro Phoenix from Aldi opened today for the very first time. We've got a reporter out there on the ground. We'll have something on that on winsightgrocerybusiness.com later today. And also we'll see up on the site now a report from Ahold Delhaize's third quarter earnings report yesterday. Pretty good sales figures and profits, which were in the range that analysts were expecting. But interesting stuff happening in their U.S. stores. This is happening with a lot of retailers. They're moving more toward a omni-channel posture. Two really interesting things coming out of this. One, it's a Giant company division. That's their Harrisburg, Pennsylvania-based division that runs Giant and Martin stores in Pennsylvania, West Virginia, Virginia. They are Maryland. Sorry, they're introducing a paid loyalty program, a la Walmart Unlimited and Amazon Prime, early next year. They didn't share a whole lot of details on it, but it will include things like preferential delivery slots, as the Walmart program does. Also, like Kroger did earlier this year, Ahold Delhaize will be partnering with a third-party marketplace called Miracle. CEO Franz Muller says this would allow for its e-commerce sites for its local brands to include things like kitchen gadgets and other things that aren't necessarily, available in the store. So endless aisles and cooking gear and other things that would complement the shop. They don't have to hold on to this stuff. It's not their inventory or costs there. So a potentially profitable way for Ahold Delhaize to grow their business, test new products, learn a few new things, Phil.
So, John, and I know you're going to have to leave us early today to do a Winsight webinar, but a couple things. Number one is I want to go back to Aldi. I don't know if you all celebrated yesterday, but yesterday was National Aldi Advent Calendar Day. They actually created that. And, the Advent calendars at Aldi have just been growing and growing. This year, there's 24 of them. And what's so interesting to me about the Advent calendar, obviously, it is steeped in religion, where it's leading up to Christmas. But the top four sellers for the Aldi Advent calendar are all alcohol-based, either beer or wine. So they go on, even though yesterday was the Aldi official Advent calendar day, they don't go on sale till tomorrow, which I don't get. But
actually, Phil, we did a Q&A with Joan Cavanaugh from Aldi about this a couple of weeks back, which you can find on winsightgrocerybusiness.com. I believe the holiday is today. I don't know. The Advent calendars, I believe, go on sale today, because I think normally
November 6th. No, they go on November 6th.
Okay.
And November 4th was the official day.
Okay. Either way, that was, yes, that's a phenomenal promotion for Aldi.
Unbelievable.
Everybody in retail is doing one now.
Yep.
Based on their wild success of that thing.
But not to the breadth of what Aldi's doing. Also, you guys don't live in California. So I got an email early this morning from Instacart. Proposition 22 has officially passed in California. This is the proposition that everybody was looking at. Uber Eats, every Instacart, everybody's putting a ton of money behind this. This was the proposition that would make the gig workers not independent contractors, but make them full-time workers. It was defeated. What this means, according to Instacart, is now all of their workers have guaranteed earnings of at least 120% of minimum wage, a healthcare subsidy, they don't say how much, if they shop 15 plus hours a week, and more policies and trainings to protect shoppers. So it'll be interesting to see what ripples, if any, there are throughout the country, because I think a lot of states were looking at this, frankly, as a way for income, that if they could switch from independent contractors to employees, not only do the workers get all these benefits, but the state gets their cut as well. And John, I want to ask you quickly before you go. I know you went on a little tour of a microfulfillment center. What was that like?
Well, it was a little unusual in that it was my first out of office meeting, I think, in 7 months. But just a couple of miles from where I am
But you were wearing a mask.
I was, and
Okay.
as were my hosts there, the CEO and chief U.S. operations executive with Fabric. Fabric is a Israel-based technology, robotics, logistics company that's come over to the U.S. They've demonstrated micro-fulfillment systems in Israel that have worked, and they've got big ambitions to expand in the U.S. So just a couple miles from here, down in Gowanus, section of Brooklyn, which is a kind of a tight industrial pocket of the city, but with tremendous access to millions of customers around the city. They have opened their first U.S. micro fulfillment center. This particular unit is not necessarily for grocery. It's going to be kind of a logistics as a service business, and they've signed on a general merchandise retailer who's going to use that facility to speed up their delivery. They're currently doing, kind of traditional 3 to 5 day delivery out of a warehouse in Pennsylvania, to get to, New York. This is going to allow them, 1 day delivery for their items. And it was my first time to see a fabric center, which is, a little bit different than some of the legacy ones like the Takeoffs and the Dramatics, which kind of descended from traditional warehouse systems. And on the other end, the Ocado, which is kind of like mind-blowingly enormous and kind of built for next day. So these guys, what their CEO Elram Gorm told me was that these guys kind of came at this solution from a consumer standpoint. Why aren't we getting grocery deliveries in 1 day? Why can't it be done? And he tells the story in the article, and there's lots of pictures too, about the kind of evolution of it. 1% of the grocery business is online versus 40% of electronics. Why is that? Well, as it turns out, of course, retailers couldn't find a way to do that profitably, without losing their shirts. So they kind of came at it that way. Cool system, robots that lift through the grid and push things down, and they actually move vertically and horizontally within the grid, and then a series of shuttles that kind of cart these totes around. They can run a center with a small handful of employees. There's one guy, everything comes to them. At a counter, he pulls it out, he scans it, he puts it in another tote. The tote goes off to the outbound dock where there's another employee, but the whole thing runs real smooth and is pretty interesting to see. The very same system is coming to Fresh Direct just outside of Washington, D.C. early next year. That's already built, but I think ready to go to business in February. And, they've talked about having some 14 other grocery related clients they haven't announced yet on the way. Again, Gorm thinks that 2021 is still going to be a year where grocers are going to test these things before like a massive rollout. But, of course, they're predicting a massive rollout, but it won't be till 2022.
Sure. And Jen, why don't we move from delivery to curbside pickup? What's some of the news that you've got?
So BrandSpark just debuted with Newsweek a study on most trusted in e-commerce. Of course, every year we work with BrandSpark on most trusted in grocery, and that'll be our December cover story, and it'll also be on our website. So be sure to check that out because there's been a bit of a shakeup. I won't say what, but with the rankings this year. But this study with Newsweek on e-commerce most trusted looks at, Walmart and Amazon are practically tied when it comes to grocery delivery, but Walmart far and away is most trusted when it comes to curbside pickup. They've got a 49% of the trust share. Amazon's next in line at 24%. And then you've got Kroger at 9%, H-E-B at just a little over 3%. So it's interesting to see, what goes into this, makes them the most trusted is, there's a variety of criteria, and, one of them is value, and Walmart has so long been known for its affordability. And I think that, during the pandemic, shoppers want to know that they can get a good price, or, that a fair price for things. And I think that that's contributing to their elevated trust numbers.
So what should other retailers learn from this survey? Besides, value, besides, having cheaper prices, they might not be able to do that to compete with Walmart. But are there any other learnings? I mean, I'm shocked to hear that H-E-B is at 3%. What should H-E-B come away when they read this survey? And by the way, BrandSpark, not only working with you, but BrandSpark has impeccable data. I mean, their surveys are terrific. So, I'm just wondering what we should all be learning from this.
Well, Robert Levy, their president, BrandSpark's president, said, in these times, in these volatile times, trust, consumers' trust is more important than ever. And so I think you need to look at all of the different factors, your fair pricing, that you communicate that with, transparency with consumers. What are you doing with all of your COVID protocols, and communicating that, regularly with shoppers. I mean, I was surprised that H-E-B was so low on that, because I think that they do a great job. And obviously COVID response also played a factor in trust this year.
Sure. Absolutely. Absolutely. What about Trader Joe's? I understand, you've stepped into the shoes of what it's really like to work for Trader Joe's. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so a friend of mine had been looking for work for some time, and she had taken time off to stay at home with her kids, and then had that difficult task of re-entering the workforce after taking a number of years off, and then the pandemic strikes, and so it was like what was a challenge before became seemingly impossible given the new circumstances. But of course, we all know that one area that's hiring is grocery. So she went down to her local Trader Joe's, and I was just so curious. She has since moved on, so I just wanted to, I sat down with her over the weekend to find out everything I could about her experience working for Trader Joe's. And really, I started with the Trader Joe's employees have this reputation of being so jovial and helpful, and is that enthusiasm real? And she's like, you know what, for the most part, like with 99% of the people, yes. Like she said that and she's been a corporate consultant for Fortune 500 companies. She's had really high level jobs, and she said that the folks at Trader Joe's were some of the best people she's ever had the pleasure of working with. Everyone works really hard, and they're a team, a family. So it was really largely positive feedback. And then I also asked her about the lines, because I said, I used to be we've discussed this so many times on this show, I used to be a loyal Trader Joe's shopper, but since the pandemic, I just don't want to tackle those lines. And she's like, as a shopper, she's never waited more than 15 minutes in line. And she continues to shop at Trader Joe's now that she's, moved on to a different position elsewhere. But she said that, now when she does go to a different grocery store, she's like, why am I here? She doesn't feel like they have the right, the same level of protocol that Trader Joe's does, keeping people, in line, safely distanced. And then she said, once you're in the store, you can shop so quickly. There are no lines at the registers. And she's also worked the front door at Trader Joe's and gotten a lot of feedback from shoppers. And, for the most part, she said that people were very appreciative that Trader Joe's was taking the precautions and the steps that they were taking to limit the number of people shopping in the stores.
One last question. Was she able to keep her Trader Joe's shirt?
I don't know. I didn't ask her that. I always
ask her.
They went out and bought their own Hawaiian shirts. I don't know.
Yeah, I've always wanted to work at Trader Joe's so I can wear one of those shirts and ring that bell. The two major perks, but it's great to hear about, that environment. And again, that's a story that other retailers should be reading, because especially now, as they're looking to hire people and they want to retain people, we always point to people like Wegmans and Publix, for having great training and really taking care of their employees. But it's great to hear about Trader Joe's as well. So we need to add them to the list.
They also felt, she also talked about how Trader Joe's, I said, well, why are what keeps the employees so happy? Why are they so genuinely happy? And she said, part of it is that they operate with this inverted pyramid. So the customers at the top, but then, the whole middle is all the frontline grocery workers, and then management's at the very bottom. And she said that this really fosters, the management's out there restocking shelves, working the front door, bagging groceries, management absolutely pitches in, and they're there to support in any way they can those frontline workers who are, front facing to the shoppers every day.
And that's not just COVID-19. This is the way Trader Joe's has operated for 30 years. So I think that's great. Great read. So Jackson, more news about 7-Eleven. Is 7-Eleven going to take over the world?
Well, it probably, yes, but while they're doing so, they just might help some other chains take over their little sectors of the world also. A lot of really exciting M&A news coming out of convenience stores right now. So just to give you some really quick background, back in August, 7-Eleven, which is owned by a company in Japan, mind you, signed a deal to purchase the majority of the assets from Marathon Petroleum's chain Speedway. Right. Now, this would give 7-Eleven an extra nearly 4,000 stores in the United States. That alone is huge. But in preparation for finishing this deal, it looks like 7-Eleven is going to divest or sell about 300 of these locations in order not to run into any regulatory hurdles that they might face with having this deal go through in the US. So what's going to happen to those stores? Well, according to Reuters, it looks like EG Group, which is owned by a company out in London, could be interested in purchasing those stores. Now, EG Group, right now, CSP, we have a list of the top 202 convenience stores and gas stations by store count. And as of this year, 2020, EG Group is number 5. And they have just absolutely skyrocketed through those ranks since they came on the scene a couple of years ago. But this deal could potentially lead to them rising up even further on that top 202 list. And it's also just another example of how these international companies are biting into more of the pie of American C-stores.
Yep, and to the detriment, of not necessarily great C-stores like Sheetz and others, but for the small operator that has worked it with their family, and they've had their version of a C-store. They've tried really hard, and with all this international money coming in, it makes it even harder. So Jen, why don't you wrap us up with some good news?
Sure. Well, I'm really pleased to see that, in these times when, everyone's anticipating the local food banks to be really stretched, going on 8 months of COVID, and then also with the holidays coming up. So Stater Brothers is pleased to announce that November 1 through December 31st, it's restarting its Harvesting Hope campaign that collects money, in store for a variety of local food banks and helping the food insecure. And one thing that I thought was a little different, I'm sure others have done it, but I just haven't read about it. To help raise money, they're also collecting funds online, and then you can send a text Stater to 41444 and send money that way. I thought that was, a good
Very
idea,
cool.
Especially now with COVID, to enable shoppers, to help raise money for their community online or via text.
Well, I know even if you look at the Salvation Army, they're very concerned with COVID-19. We're not going to see the Santas outside the stores, ringing the bell, looking for a loose change. They're trying to figure out, how to text and how to do those things as well to keep that money flowing in to help the needy. So yeah, that is great news. Good to hear from Stater Brothers, a great California company. So with that, thank you all for joining us. Again, archives on Winsight Grocery Business, CSP, Restaurant Business, Supermarket Guru. Have a great weekend. Wear a mask. Be calm. Eat calming foods until we know the results of the election, and be safe.